Senator Burr, I understand you have two additional
A couple of
questions.
questions, if I could, Madam Chair. This is for Dr. Woodcock and Ms. O'Connell. It's my understanding that prior to Omicron, BARDA informed some therapeutic manufacturers that they would no longer be supporting additional work on new therapies because there's no longer an unmet need, which may impact whether and how FDA prioritizes reviewing such therapies. Did BARDA and FDA change course on this policy once the Omicron variant was discovered in November?
BARDA's decision to put that notification out was in light of the fact that the therapeutics development was moved over to Operation Warp Speed, and BARDA was supporting the therapies that were being developed through the Warp Speed effort. So it was a way of combining the funding that was available to be able to move the therapies through faster. BARDA never stopped supporting therapy work, but I'll let Dr. Woodcock.
Yeah, we still regard there is an extreme unmet medical need for therapeutics at most stages of the disease, particularly the late stages where we still don't have interventions, and so people are dying in the late stage of disease, getting into the ICU, going on the ventilator. So, of course, we have 670 INDs that we've been, clinical protocols that are ongoing, to my knowledge. So the robust development is still ongoing in the therapeutic area.
So how much funding has BARDA allocated to therapeutics this year, and how much is left to spend?
I'll have to go back and check that on the actual development. We've spent a lot of funds this year on the procurement of the therapeutics that have already been developed, but be more than happy to bring that number to you and your staff.
And I'm talking about the development end of it. Because there's a firm belief out there that BARDA went to the industry and said, we're not supporting this anymore. They didn't say this got moved over to Operation Warp Speed, which, by the way, doesn't exist anymore. But BARDA said, we're not supporting therapeutics because there's not an unmet need. That's what the industry heard. I'd love for you to clarify that for me. Last thing, Dr. Woodcock, since we did discuss the point of care and at-home testing, I just happened to come up with a chart that FDA put out not long ago. So let me just, and you're probably familiar with it. One's molecular, one's antigen, and one's serology. And for the molecular and the antigen, if you test yes for point of care or at home, that kicks you to the right. The next box is high manufacturing capacity. If your answer is no there, it kicks you down to an FDA intends to decline box. There's no option. So if you're not a high manufacturing test, then FDA is going to decline to review. Boy, I got to tell you, I think this is a huge mistake. Now, if you tell me that you've got a couple hundred tests that fall into the high manufacturing capacity right now at the FDA, where you've got the luxury of being able to kick out new innovative companies that haven't solved their manufacturing yet, by all means, tell me that's the case, that there are a couple hundred. Right now, Ms. O'Connell's struggling to buy 500 million tests. We're 47, maybe 50 million there. That leaves another 450 million to purchase. And we're going to distributors trying to buy their inventory, not to manufacturers trying to buy their capacity. Something's not right here, guys, on testing. And I will tell you, the current administration's chief of staff got it right in 2020, March, and he said, testing's broken, testing's broken, testing's broken. I just say to all of you right now, testing's broken. And Ms. O'Connell, I think the responsibility falls to the ASPR. I wrote the law. If, in the case of CDC, they were the delay to begin with, but to acquire testing, that falls in your lane. And I for the life of me, can't figure out after $82 billion, except for somebody sitting down and saying, well, we just don't need those tests. We don't need to buy them. how you could let Abbott close 2 lines because there wasn't any business. These are some of the most premier manufacturers in the world that we've let get out of the mass manufacturing of home test business. If I'm wrong, tell me I am. I respect all 4 of you in a huge way. But I also express my disapproval very quickly, and that's what I'm doing today. Anything you want to add to that, Ms. O'Connell?
Please, thank you, Ranking Member Burr. Let me just clarify, of course, that the initial contracts you're speaking of towards the $500 million were the available inventory that these distributors had. These are the distributor contracts. The manufacturer contracts are currently being worked. You will see that capacity come on quickly. We just haven't been able to land the contracts, to draft the contracts as quickly as the distributors, but they are coming.
My suggestion in the future is that when you guys huddle inside the COVID team, try to get the administration to refrain from making these proclamations until we've got the product, until we know who we're negotiating with. We're now 3 weeks since the president said we're going to buy 500 million tests. We have 50 million currently contracted. I don't know how long it's going to take to get the rest of the contracts. This is not dissimilar to when we went out and said we're going to booster everybody in America, yet we rolled it out with just people over 60 to start with, and then we started moving down. And now we're begging people to get boosted, which is where we should have been on day one because we had the product available. But listen, you guys have a tough job. And I don't know of anything else Congress can do than try to create the statutory framework that you can work in to do your job, which exists, or provide the funding to allow you to acquire. Those are the only 2 things we can do other than bitch and gripe when it doesn't happen as quickly as we'd like. But, Tony, I really respect you, and I'm sorry you and your family are going through what you're going through. But please understand, we go through that every time we go home with millions of people in North Carolina, millions that believe the bad information that's out there, millions of people that have a loved one in the hospital but there's no monoclonals for them to take, millions of people who are unvaccinated, probably wish today they had gotten vaccinated, probably wish they had gotten boosted, but they're now in the ICU and their wife or husband or daughter is calling us and saying, what do I do? So we're here to support. What you need, tell us. But don't think that we're just going to sit here and print money without a full accountability of where it has gone. And I hope the Secretary is listening to that conversation today. Senator Blunt and I said, give us a full audited accounting of the $82 billion and we'll entertain additional funding for testing. That was 10 days ago. I'm not sure when we're going to get it or if we're going to get it, but it's conditional. And this is the most powerful person on the other side of the appropriations. And I think she knows I'm serious on this one. There's got to be accountability on the money and the way it's spent. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Madam Chairman.